What is up, guys? So I've got a true Draco deck profile for you here today. Yes, I know everyone's favorite deck to hate. I don't really know why people don't like this deck. I find it quite fun and cool. But anyway, yeah, this deck is quite interesting because they lost a lot of strength, unfortunately, due to the losing of Diagram to 3, or not losing Diagram, but getting it going from 3 to 1, which took a lot of strength. But it's still a very strong archetype, and I think it's actually one of the better rogue decks this format. One of the things about True Draco is that it can actually go second, and I will be doing 2 profiles in one with this, where I will show you going first and going second, because the deck can quite confidently do both. What's especially nice about this deck is that it is very, very cheap, because it does not rely on an extra deck at all. Almost every card in the main deck and in the side deck, apart from the droplets that I put here, is available for very cheap because they're in quite low rarity. So this is a really, really good one to pick up. I'm sure there are going to be some people who hate me for saying this, but definitely if you're on a budget, if you're a new player, it's a simple deck to play. It doesn't cost a lot. This is definitely a really good one to pick up, and especially for this format. But let's get into, I'm going to explain some of my deck choices and stuff. So we start off with the True Draco cards. So 1 Dynamite, 3 Ignis, 3 Maiden. Really nothing to say about that. Maiden is going to search your other True Draco monsters. Ignis is going to search your True Draco spells. And Dynamite, I don't know why he's still at 1, by the way. He really shouldn't be anymore, but he's going to search your True Draco traps. So yeah, you run as many of them as you can. You really need to see these cards to play the game. That's probably one of your biggest weaknesses, because you do need to essentially see 1 True Draco continuous spell or trap and a True Draco monster to play the game. If you don't see any, you kind of struggle. So that's what makes Maiden so good as well, because a lot of times what you're going to want to do is get that Maiden out early. Your opponent's going to activate something, Maiden's then going to search other monsters, and then now you suddenly have the loot that you can just keep playing with. But anyway, yeah, moving on, we play 3 Heritage of the True Draco, 3 Disciples of the True Draco Phoenix, and 1 Diagram. So yeah, all the spells, you play them as max as possible. If you're playing a non-pure True Draco build, Disciples can go down to 2, but in general, you play these at max. They're just really good to hear. So Heritage is going to draw you cards, which is awesome. Disciples is going to recycle and draw you cards, which is awesome. Diagram, which is your main searcher, and also protects your True Draco cards. Again, a really, really strong card. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind about True Dracos, and one of their bigger weaknesses, obviously, is that the fact that they are reliant on that kind of normal / tribute summon that they have. So there are cards that can counter you, like Master Restrict and stuff. And not only that, but if your opponent just pops these cards and doesn't let them stay on the field, you are going to struggle to get monsters on the board. So you do need to see a continuous spell or trap, because those are essentially your tributes. That's how they kind of cheat the tribute summon. Moving on from that, the True Draco traps, again, we have 1 True King's Return and 3 True Draco Apocalypse. True King's Return, I don't know, maybe before it was super busted, but now I feel like this card is actually rubbish, to be honest. Like, if there was a True Draco card to cut, I would cut this, because it's just nowhere near as good as it used to be. True Draco Apocalypse, on the other hand, is an extremely good card, mainly because it pops monsters. The traps pops monsters. The spells when they go to graveyard pop spells and traps. Traps pop monsters when they go to graveyard. And True Draco Apocalypse also has the advantage of halving your opponent's attacks, which is really, really useful. That's such a good effect, just because one of the main things you're going to be doing in this deck, one of the main ways people are going to be trying to beat over you, is to kind of beat over in battle and stuff. But between your Diagram and having your True Draco Apocalypse, it's going to be very hard for your opponent to out your monsters by battle. They're almost always going to have to get them off the field with card effects, because it's so easy. And then also True Draco Apocalypse is going to let you bring out tribute summon more True Draco cards on your opponent's turn. I mean, this card does so much. And then another thing you can do, for example, if you have another True Draco spell on field, you can pop this to pop a spell to pop one of their spells, or you can pop this, pop a spell, the spell will pop the True Draco Apocalypse, and then that will allow you to pop one of their monsters. So I mean, it's just pops on pops on pops. This is such a good card. It is one of our favorite cards to have in the deck. Then moving on from that, I'll explain the other kind of cards that I have in this and my choices. So in terms of hand traps, I'm playing 3 Nibiru and 3 Imperm, just because they are, quite frankly, the best hand traps this format. Nibiru will cover a large amount of rogue decks and Adamancipator. It isn't amazing, it's Adamancipator, I will admit, but it is still a good card. At certain points, you can really slow down their combo if you hit them with a Nibiru. And Imperm, a very, very strong spell. It's good against S0. It's good against almost every deck. One of the main advantages of it as well is that you can't call by the grave Imperm. So if you have Imperm, there's very little that you can do. They can't call by it, they can't gamma it. There's just nothing a lot of decks can do against it when you Imperm a key monster on their field. Moving on from that, we have our kind of utility and draw spell spells. So we play 1 Demise, 1 Upstart, 3 Duality. So you can play Extravagance in True Dracos. However, generally you won't see people do that, and the main reason is obviously because of the Monarch spells firstly, and because of Demise. Demise, even at 1, is such powerful cards. I remember the days of 3 Demise, 3 Duality, 3 Desires in True Draco. That was, oh my gosh, it was so insane. I don't play Desires in True Draco anymore. I just don't think it's worth it. It's too risky. Before, when the only thing you might have lost is the Dynamite and the True King's Return, yes, you could get away with it, but now you'll lose the diagram as well. I just don't think it's worth it. I think it's better to try and play a slower game. You do have the disadvantage, obviously, that you need to see certain cards or you'll struggle to play the game, but I still think it's worth not playing Desires and just playing these as your draw spells. Duality helps a lot as well, obviously, just allowing you to get one of the 3 cards atop your deck, which will almost always be a card you need. Moving on from that, obviously we're going to play the Terraforming as well, just a search diagram, and we play another field spell, so Monarchs. Monarch cards are actually quite good in True Draco. You could also play, there's a search spell, I can't remember what it's called, but Monarchs have a search spell that if you have that and Ignis in your hand, you can search the other Monarch cards, which is quite good. And the field spell especially, I think, is a nice replacement. So it's 2 effects. The first effect is if you control a tribute summon monster, you lock your opponent out of the extra deck. Now that is an amazing effect in itself. It isn't amazingly hard to out. If your opponent has some sort of back row removal, obviously they're going to be able to out that, but it is a nice lock to put on the field, and it will slow down a lot of decks. And then on top of that, another thing you can do is if your tribute summon monster, if a tribute summon monster you control attacks an opponent monster, it gains 800 attack during damage calculation, which is amazing. So it basically means that all of your True Dracos can basically beat over 3k monsters, which is lovely. It's going to be a very, very nice effect to have. So Domain of the True Monarchs is a really nice field spell. Obviously it's no diagram, but it's still a really, really good field spell, and I would advise having this. Another really good option, as you see in my extra deck, is Mystic Mine, especially for the going second builds or in games 2 and games 3. Mystic Mine is such a busted spell for Monarch, for True Dracos, especially because you often will only have 1 or 2 monsters on field anyway. You don't need a huge amount of monsters on field with True Draco, so it is quite nice to have Mystic Mine as another option as well. Moving on from that, we play 1 Monarch Stormforth. You could probably play this at 2 or 3 as well. I really, really, really like this card. Because this is a going first variant, I only play 1, but you can play this at 2 or 3. It's such a good card because it outs so many threats. So it's once during this turn, if you tribute a monster from tribute summon, you can tribute 1 monster your opponent controls, even if you don't control it. So a lot of cards you won't be able to out. A lot of monsters, they can't be targeted, they can't be destroyed, all this nonsense. This card basically outs any monster, because all of your True Dracos will allow 1 tribute, unless the monster specifically says you can't tribute, which is very few. There's like Quintet Magician, there's like, I don't know, Eater of Millions. There's not that many monsters that say you can't tribute them, which means if your opponent has a Dragoon, when Dragoon comes out, unfortunately we finally see the Megdins is definitely coming, but when Dragoon comes out, for example, unless they negate this with Dragoon, that's going straight away. The Eldritch, you can tribute over the Eldritch, now all their traps are dead. And Emancipate, you can tribute over that thing that, I mean, it doesn't matter if they lock you out of your extra deck, but you can tribute over their Savage Dragon, they're screwed. I mean, it's such a good card. And what's really nice about it as well, it's one of those cards that even if you don't have anything, it's not a bad idea to shotgun it to try and bait and negate, because if your opponent is smart, they'll realize a lot of times they'll think, okay, I can't afford, they can't respond once you've used it. The only chance they have to respond is when you activate Stormforth. They can't respond to the summon, so your opponent will realize that they have to respond to this card itself, or they're just going to lose a negate, which will screw them over. So it's a really good card to bait for negates. It's rarely a brick, and I really, really like this card in this deck. Moving on from that, we also play Monarchs Erupt. This is basically skill drain. One of the huge strengths of Monarchs Erupt is that it's a very one-sided skill drain. It only affects non-tribute summoned monsters. So if it's special summoned, normal summoned, flip summoned, all of that is going to be negated. If it's tribute summoned, it won't be, and most of the time you're only going to be the person with a tribute summon monster. So Monarchs Erupt is a really, really strong skill drain, and what's even better is even if you lose your card, you basically have an extra turn to get another tribute summon monster on the field before the Erupt will kill itself. So it's a really, really good card. Again, you're really going to want to see Monarchs Erupt. You can play this at 2 or 3. The reason why I choose to play this at 1 in game 1 is just because I want to have coverage for as many different decks as possible. I don't want to just have 3 Monarchs Erupt and then come against like a deck like Eldritch that doesn't really care about it. Then moving on from that, I also play 1 Imperial Order and 1 actual skill drain. So skill drain for the same reason as Monarchs Erupt. What's especially nice about cards like skill drain, by the way, and about Imperial Order is that these Floodgates, they're frustrating, but as it is with True Draco, I can tribute over them if I don't want them. I can just tribute over them with my Ignis and my Majesty and blah blah. So if these are, they're never really bricks, because worst case scenario, you just set, normal summon your true Draco monster, and it was just a free monster for you. But Imperial Order, really, really good card, shuts off a lot of cards in the meta. And again, the strength of Imperial Order is that you can lock them out of spells, then comes to your turn, tribute over it, your opponent shafted. Then Rivalry of Warlords. So this was actually shown to me by a mate of mine, and I really, really like this interaction. But Rivalry plus Nibiru locks out so many decks. What I will do a lot of the time is I'll activate Nibiru, then activate Rivalry, and what this will do is it will put Nibiru token on their side of the field, and suddenly they're locked out of doing anything. They can't summon any monsters, because unless they're playing a deck like Adamantipated that has rocks in it, they can't summon unless they've got another rock, which is really, really good. And it's a good way to kind of lock a deck out of it and allow you to accumulate some advantage while they can't do anything. Then moving on from that, we have a bit of utility. So we have Crackdown, and you play one Crackdown. It's just a generically good spell. What's especially nice about Crackdown is that you can crack down your opponent's monster, then you can tribute over it, or you can just tribute the Crackdown itself. So it's really, really easy to kind of utilize and get a lot of value out of. And then we play the 2 Solemns to protect from back row, especially in games 2 and 3. This is going to matter because people are going to be siding in those Lightning Storms or those Evenleys. One great thing about True Dracos is Lightning Storm, at least, is not always going to be the best card against you, because if they use Lightning Storm on you and you have, say, a True Draco monster on field and you have some True Draco spell or traps, first your True Draco monster is going to get a search, then your True Draco spell or traps are going to proc and pop stuff on their field. So Lightning Storm is an amazing issue. But anyway, yeah, Solemn Judgment is going to be nice. Then moving into the extra deck, we have Dark Ruler No More, Forbidden Droplet, Spell Mining Cave, Evenly Matched, There Can Be Only One, Unending Nightmare. There's really nothing to say, just generic going seconds cards, and I'm going to quickly flip around and show you the going second version. And you'll see in the going second version, I'm basically just running these cards in the main deck. So I'm going to quickly show you that now. So what's up, guys? This is the going second variant. As you can see, it's very, very similar. I'm playing 3 Dark Ruler No More, 3 Forbidden Droplet in the main, and then I'm also playing Mystic Mine, 3 Mystic Mine in the main as well. So that's the main difference. The side deck has changed a little bit, but yeah, in the side deck, the only real difference is that now I am playing 3 Summon Limit. So I really like Summon Limit in this deck as well. It's another good option because you don't summon that much as a True Draco player, and it will shaft a lot of decks coming out. You flip Summon Limit on their second summon, suddenly they have to pass turn. But this is the going second variant. I prefer this variant generally for this meta, just because the vast majority of decks won't be able to deal with all of the removal you have, especially with things like Dark Ruler No More. First, you can Dark Ruler No More their whole board, and then you can just start to normal summon your True Dracos over your continuous traps. What's particularly nice about True Dracos is you don't necessarily have to. You can, they are good cards. You can run things like Lightning Storm and Evenly, but they're a lot less necessary because once you've negated their board, you can just pop it because all of your spells have and traps have inbuilt destruction, which is really nice. You can also see that I don't run a lot of focused back row removal because they have so many ways to destroy spells and traps. They just don't really need it. But guys, that is my True Draco profile. I really, really think this is a great deck to pick up for this format. Going first or going second, it is amazing. So guys, if you've enjoyed this, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to my channel. I've got plenty more content coming out, and comment down below. A lot of you have been letting me know what you want to see, and trust me, if I've promised you that I'm bringing something out, it's coming out. Don't worry, you can be sure of it. So I'll talk to you all soon, guys. Peace.